The memorial hall reeked of lilies and false sympathy. I stood at the entrance, watching my stepmother Diane orchestrate my father's farewell like a society gala. Her black Chanel suit impeccable despite the Miami humidity. She air-kissed arriving guests while my half-siblings, Marcus and Sophia, flanked her like well-trained show dogs. Some yuaning ni dis tiu agandil ya catrng. And since you not really fmil. Diane's voice cut through the murmured condolences as she noticed me. She pointed one manicured finger toward the kitchen, her diamond bracelet catching the light. The staff could use help with the coffee service. I didn't move immediately, studying the woman who'd married my father 6 years ago when I was 18 and still grieving my mother. The woman who'd systematically erased every trace of my mother from our family home and relegated me to the guest house for everyone's comfort. "Did you hear me, Amelia?" Her voice sharpened. "The partners from Morrison and Associates just arrived. Real family needs to greet them properly." Real family. As if sharing my father's DNA for 24 years meant less than her 6 years of marriage and the twins she'd brought from her previous relationship. "Of course," I said quietly, smoothing my simple black dress. The only one I owned, purchased hastily when I received the news of my father's sudden heart attack. I wouldn't want to embarrass anyone. Marcus smirked as I passed. At 21, he'd already perfected Diane's dismissive attitude. "Try not to spill anything," he muttered. "These people actually matter." The kitchen was a chaos of caterers who looked at me with confusion when I entered. I wasn't dressed like staff, but here I was assigned to pour coffee for my father's memorial guests. The head caterer, a kind-faced woman named Elena, recognized me from the few family dinners I'd been permitted to attend. "Miss Amelia, you should be." "It's fine," I interrupted, tying an apron over my dress. "Just tell me what needs to be done." For the next hour, I served coffee to my father's colleagues, friends, and business partners. Some recognized me and showed flickers of confusion or pity. Most didn't spare me a second glance. I was invisible, just as Diane had intended. "Cream, no sugar," Mr. Morrison himself ordered without looking up from his phone. I'd known him since I was 10, when he'd helped my father establish the real estate empire that had made our family fortune. Now he couldn't even recognize the daughter of his oldest client. As I moved through the crowd with my coffee pot, I caught fragments of conversation. Diane holding court near the portrait of my father, dabbing at dry eyes with a handkerchief. Douglas was so generous, she sighed to a group of society women, making sure the children and I would be taken care of. He knew Marcus would run the company beautifully, and Sophia has such a head for numbers. Family was everything to him. I nearly dropped the coffee pot. The children. As if I didn't exist at all. "More coffee here," someone called, and I dutifully responded, filling cups while my father's life was reduced to anecdotes and asset discussions. It was while serving the lawyers, 3 partners from Morrison and Associates huddled near the window, that everything changed. "The will reading is scheduled for tomorrow," Mr. Morrison was saying. "Diane wants it handled quickly. The estate is substantial but straightforward. Everything to the surviving spouse with trusts for the 3 children. 3 children. At least I rated a mention in the legal documents. About that, his younger partner, Mr. Reeves, said nervously. "There's been a development. The court received a subsequent filing last month, a new will." I froze, coffee pot suspended over a partner's cup. Mr. Morrison's face darkened. "What do you mean, a new will?" "Filed properly, witnessed, notarized, and Douglas came to our office personally to ensure it was handled correctly. He was very specific about the timing." "That's impossible," Morrison snapped. "I have the will right here, drafted 2 years ago." "This one is dated 3 weeks before his death," Reeves interrupted. "It supersedes everything else." Through the archway, I could see Diane chatting with guests, oblivious to the bomb about to detonate in her perfectly orchestrated world. I forced my hands to stay steady as I finished pouring the coffee. "What does it say?" Morrison demanded. Reeves glanced around nervously, but I was just the help, invisible with my coffee pot. "It's comprehensive, and very different from what Mrs. Sullivan expects." I moved away, my heart pounding. My father had changed his will. 3 weeks before his death, he'd made new arrangements. Why? What had prompted him to? "Amelia?" I turned to find Mr. Castellano, my father's oldest friend and business mentor, studying me with knowing eyes. Unlike the others, he'd recognize me immediately despite my servile position. "Vincent," I managed, setting down the coffee pot to accept his embrace. "What are you doing?" he asked quietly, glancing at my apron. "Why argue with the family?" "I am exactly where Diane wants me," I replied. His expression hardened. "I see, your father would be." He stopped, shaking his head. "He was very proud of you, talked about you constantly. Your graduate degree, your volunteer work, your mother's spirit living on in you." Tears threatened for the first time since I'd learned of my father's death. He had a funny way of showing it. I haven't been allowed at a family dinner in 2 years. "Allowed?" Vincent's eyebrows rose. "Your father said you were too busy with school, that you preferred your independence." I stared at him. "He said that?" "Vincent, Diane told me I wasn't welcome unless I could respect the new family dynamic. I've been living in a studio apartment near campus because she converted the guest house into a gym for Marcus." Vincent's face went through several expressions before settling on cold fury. "That explains so much," he muttered. Douglas seemed different the last few months. Distracted. He kept asking me about trust structures and estate protection. I thought he was just being thorough. As I poured coffee for the hours, I hear Diane's gasp from across the room. "What do you mean the Betrayal is unfaithful?" Every conversation stopped. Diane stood frozen by the memorial portrait, her face draining of color as Mr. Morrison approached her with visible reluctance. "The LAWREPLI. The real YLUASFILED asked Monte. Perhaps we should ask Miss Amelia Sullivan to join us. She's named as the primary executor." The coffee pot slipped from my hands, shattering on the marble floor. Dark liquid spread across the white stone like blood. But no one noticed. Every eye in the room had turned to me, the invisible daughter, the servant, the afterthought. "That's impossible." Diane's voice climbed to a shriek. Douglas would never." "I have the documents right here," Mr. Reeves said firmly. "Shall we move this discussion somewhere private?" Vincent's hand settled on my shoulder, warm and steadying. "Go," he murmured. "I'll handle the cleanup. Your father's lawyer is waiting in the study." I untied my apron with trembling fingers, letting it fall onto a nearby chair. The crowd parted as I walked through the memorial hall, their whispers following me like rustling leaves. Diane's children stood slack-jawed while their mother's carefully composed facade cracked like old paint. The study had been my father's sanctuary, though I'd rarely been allowed inside after Diane's arrival. Now I entered to find not just Mr. Reeves, but 2 other lawyers I didn't recognize, along with a court officer. Miss Sullivan, one of the unfamiliar lawyers, stood. "I'm James Whitman from Whitman and Associates. Your father engaged our services privately for this matter. Please sit down. There's a lot to discuss." I sank into the leather chair across from them, my mind reeling. "I don't understand. My father and we weren't close. Not for years." "That's what he wanted everyone to believe," Whitman said gently. "But Douglas Sullivan was a very thorough man. He's been investigating some irregularities in his household finances for the past year. What he discovered prompted him to take immediate action." He handed me a thick folder. Inside were bank statements, emails, photographs. Comprehensive investigation into Diane's activities. "Your stepmother has been systematically embezzling from your father's companies," Whitman explained. "Funneling money to offshore accounts, using corporate funds for personal expenses, and most damning, forging your signature on documents removing you from family trusts." I stared at the evidence. She forged my signature. Multiple times. She also intercepted your letters to your father, routed your emails to a dummy account, and told him you wanted nothing to do with the family. Meanwhile, she was telling you that you weren't welcome. A classic manipulation technique to isolate her target. My hands shook as I processed this. All those years of feeling abandoned, unwanted, it had been orchestrated. "Your father was devastated when he discovered the truth," Whitman continued. "He wanted to confront her immediately, but we advised him to wait, to ensure everything was legally airtight. He rewrote his will to ensure you would be protected and that justice would be served." "What exactly did he do?" I asked, though part of me already knew. Whitman smiled grimly. "Douglas Sullivan left you in complete control. not just of his estate, but of the entire Sullivan empire. You are the sole trustee with absolute discretion over distributions to other beneficiaries. Your stepmother and her children will receive generous allowances, but only at your discretion and only if they meet certain conditions. The door burst open. Diane stood there, her perfect composure shattered, mascara streaming down her cheeks. This is fraud. I'll contest it. You'll do nothing, the court officer said calmly. Mrs. Sullivan, I'm Detective Martinez with the Financial Crimes Division. We need to discuss the embezzlement charges your late husband filed before his death. Diane's mouth opened and closed like a landed fish. Behind her, Marcus and Sophia clustered in the doorway, their earlier arrogance replaced by fear. Additionally, Whitman added, there's the matter of elder abuse. Isolating Mr. Sullivan from his daughter, controlling his communications, financial exploitation. These are serious charges. Amelia, Diane's voice cracked as she focused on me. Sweetheart, we're family. Surely you don't want family? I stood slowly, finding my voice at last. You told me I wasn't family. You made me serve coffee at my own father's memorial. You stole years from us, years I can never get back. I'll make it right, she pleaded. The money, I can return it. It's not about the money, I said quietly. It's about the lies, the manipulation, the cruelty. I looked at Marcus and Sophia, who seemed to shrink under my gaze. Did you know? Were you part of it? We didn't, Sophia started. They knew you weren't getting Dad's emails, Marcus admitted, unable to meet my highs. Mom said it was better that way, said you were after the money. The irony almost made me laugh. The one who was after the money was accusing me of being a gold digger. Detective Martinez stepped forward. Mrs. Sullivan, we need you to come with us for questioning. As Diane was led away, her designer heels clicking against the hardwood, she turned back one last time. Your father loved me, she said desperately. I made him happy. You made him a fool, Vincent said from the doorway. He'd been listening, along with half the memorial guests who'd followed the drama. But he figured it out in the end. That's why we're here. The study empty except for me, the lawyers, and Vincent. I sank back into the chair, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what had just happened. There's one more thing, Whitman said gently, pulling out an envelope. Your father left you a personal letter. He asked that you read it privately when you're ready. I took the envelope with my name written in my father's distinctive handwriting. Not yet. I wasn't ready yet. What happens now? I asked instead. Now, Vincent said, sitting beside me, you decide what kind of person you want to be. Your father left you power, absolute power over the people who wronged you. What you do with it will define who you are. I thought about Diane in handcuffs, about Marcus and Sophia's stricken faces, about the years of loneliness and rejection. The urge for revenge was strong, to use my newfound power to make them suffer as I had suffered. But then I remembered my mother, her grace and kindness, the values she tried to instill before cancer took her. I remembered my father before Diane, how he built his empire not through cruelty but through fair dealing and hard work. Set up a trust for Marcus and Sophia's education, I said finally. Full tuition and living expenses, but they have to maintain their grades and perform community service. Give them a chance to become better than what they've been taught. Whitman nodded, making notes. And Diane? Vincent asked. Let the law handle her crimes, I decided. But ensure she has a legal defense. I won't become her by denying basic rights. You're more generous than she deserves, Vincent observed. No, I corrected. I'm exactly as generous as my parents raised me to be. Both of them. Later that evening, after the lawyers had gone and the memorial hall stood empty, I finally opened my father's letter. His handwriting blurred through my tears as I read. My dearest Amelia, if you're reading this, then I've failed you in life but hope to make it right in death. I discovered too late how thoroughly I was deceived, how cruelly you were separated from me. The investigators' reports broke my heart. All those letters you sent, all those attempts to reach out that never reached me. I was a fool, blinded by loneliness after your mother's death, manipulated by someone who saw opportunity in my grief. But you, my daughter, were never far from my thoughts. Every achievement of yours that I learned about through others filled me with pride. Your mother's strength lives in you. I've arranged things to give you the power to seek justice or mercy as you see fit. Whatever you choose, know that I trust your judgment. You are my true heir, not just in wealth but in spirit. I'm sorry for the lost years. I'm sorry for the pain. I hope someday you can forgive a foolish old man who loved you more than he knew how to show. All my love, Dad. I clutched the letter to my chest, finally allowing the tears to fall. The memorial guests were gone. The coffee was cleaned up, and I sat alone in my father's study, no longer the invisible daughter but the guardian of his legacy. Through the window, I could see the gardener tending to my mother's rose garden, the one piece of her that dying hadn't been able to erase. Tomorrow, I would have them plant new roses, one for each year we'd lost and one for the future we'd never have. But I would build something from the ashes of our broken family, not what Diane had tried to create through manipulation and greed, but something real, something worthy of both my parents' memory. The coffee pot had shattered, but from its scattered pieces, I would create a mosaic of justice, mercy, and hope. It's what they would have wanted. It's what I wanted too. As I locked my father's study and walked through the empty house, I realized the most profound truth. Power isn't about controlling others or seeking revenge. It's about choosing who you become when you have every reason to become someone cruel. I chose to remain my parents' daughter, both of them, and that was the greatest inheritance of all.